Greetings, productive programmer. So in our previous video, we set up a homepage endpoint that even if we're logged out, we can access it and we can read other people's stories and we can go back to the homepage. And then if we log in, we can edit only our own posts, which we did in some of our previous videos, but now that's basically the full structure of the application. Now, if I go to register here for the application, I have to enter my email and my password. But if we look at Medium, the way that this works is Medium doesn't have usernames. So if I look at the stories, it says the name of the person. So it doesn't say like, there's no anonymous type of username. It just says the name of the actual person that wrote the article. So in some of these, I guess some people don't use their own name. They might use a company name or something random. So you could kind of treat it like a username, like Unbecoming, for example, here. But if we go to our profile, we can see that medium.com provides to us an area where we can enter our name. So instead of a username, you just have name. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it up so when you register for our application and when users are looking at posts here, we'll display the name of the user who created the post. So basically who the author is. So to do this in our application, what we can do is I'm just going to close out all these tabs and get a fresh start here. And I'm going to go into where we have our blog and we're going to locate our user who's under the accounts folder. This user currently has an email and a password. So that's what we're seeing here when we go to register. Email, password, that's generated for us by default with the generators that generate our authentication in Phoenix LiveView. So in order to add a name here, what we can do is we can copy and paste one of these fields and we can call the field name and we can keep it a string. So now our user schema in our database will have a name. And if we want to have this take effect though, we're going to need to modify this. We're going to need to have a migration file. So if we come in here to where our private files are inside of our repo folder migrations, just like we created the users before, we need to basically alter this field here and update it so that it now has a name. So when you create migrations, you wouldn't edit one that was previously created because we already run this migration file. What we need to do is generate a new migration file so that way we can generate a new change to our database and basically insert this username. So if I come to Postgres and I select everyone from the users table, then we can see that the users have an ID, an email, and that's pretty much, they have their password here that's hashed for us. So this is all taken care of for us. We need to have another column though. We need to have a name area in order to respect our new schema. So in order to generate our new migration file, what we can do is we can go ahead and from our command line, I'll just stop the server briefly and I'll run mix ecto and we'll generate a new migration and we're going to add a user. So this is how you can create a migration file with ecto, and this name is just arbitrary. This is just to give us some information about what we're doing. So I said add user, I should have said add name. So I'll just go ahead and I'll just delete this template. Let me recreate that and use something that's named a little bit better. It really doesn't matter, but just wanted to be more descriptive. Okay, so add name, and so as you can see, it's just arbitrary. And we're going to have to write the code here inside this migration file. So it generates the template for us, but we need to basically put the code in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the previous migration file here where we created the table, and I'm going to use this kind of as a template. I'm just going to copy this code and bring it over to here. And where we were issuing the change with our migration, instead of creating the table, because we've already created the users table, we're just going to alter the table. And instead of adding the password or the confirmed at or the timestamps, because we already have those, we can just go ahead and we can just add the name, and we will make sure that we tell it that it's going to be a string. And we don't need any of these other rules that were originally set up for our email. We're just going to make ours very simple, and we're just going to make it a name. And we're not going to try to enforce null false because we'll allow people to leave their name blank if they want to. We could add additional rules if we needed to. And then CI text, what that means is that it's referring to case insensitive text. So it's ensuring that if you had an email, your email is still going to be valid even if it has uppercase characters or lowercase characters, right? So there's no difference between if your username has a uppercase characters or lowercase characters when you're creating like a Gmail account, right? So that's why case insensitive text was used there. But for us, we can allow users to capitalize their name where appropriate. So we're going to just use a string. So it's going to make it really, really simple for us. Now, Medium.com, they do not, again, it's not usernames. So if they had usernames though, what we could do is we could enforce that the usernames be unique. But obviously, like, there could be two people on the site that both have the name Bob, so it doesn't matter for our case. But I just wanted to show you, if we were creating, like, let's pretend that we were creating usernames. If we were going to create usernames, we might also want to create a unique index like this, where we're going to have, you know, we could, on the users table, we would have a unique index for the username. But that obviously that will work if we had usernames and we wanted to enforce that they're unique. But since we're just going to have names, and there could be two people again on the site that have the same name, there's no reason to create a unique index. But I just wanted to mention that. So if you wanted to implement something like a usernames, you would make sure that you would ensure that it's a unique index. So again, not needed for application, but just useful information to know. All right, so with this migration file created, now it's not going to take effect immediately, obviously, until we actually run this migration file. So the way that we can do this is we can just come back to our command line here and we can run mix ecto migrate. And then this will automatically run our migration file and it will add the name column to the fields in our Postgres table. So let's go ahead and let's run that. And we'll see that it'll tell us that it ran that file. So it will locate that there's a new migration file and it's going to display the migration number, which will match our file. And then it'll say that it altered the table users. Now, if we come back to our table and we select our users again, we can see that there is now a name column. It did stick it at the end, so it's all the way at the end of the fields here, but that's okay. That'll still work for our purposes. Okay, so now that our database supports the names, if we come back here and we restart our application, so if we come back here to our application, if we go to register, it still only presents us with the options to register with an email and a password. So what we need to do is we need to update our code so that way when a user comes to the site, we request them to enter their name to register for the website with their name. And then that way we'll store that as basically their author name. So that way we can use it when we go to our stories and we list out their name. So we're going to update our register form here so that way users can register with their name. So in order to add our user's name to the registration field, we're just going to locate that registration field. And where this is set up is inside of our blog accounts user. First thing we need to do actually is we need to make it so that way when the registration change set is passed, it will include the name. So we're going to add name here. So now when the registration change set is used, it will pass the email, the password, and the name. And what this registration change set is referring to is if we search for this, you'll see that the registration change set is used when that register user function is called, and the register user function is called inside of our user registration live module. So basically, right here, this handle save, this is the handle save that's associated with the registration of the user. And you can locate this. So this endpoint is users register. So if we were to come here to our routes, so our Phoenix generators automatically create this user register endpoint. So I would guess I was jumping ahead of myself, but I should have shown you that the way that this, you kind of understand where this stuff lives is if you just look at your routes, it'll actually just show you that it's tied to the user registration live module. And so this module, if we come here, we can see this is where our form is going to render that registers the user. And this is also where that handle save is that's going to register the user. So this code all flows pretty logically. And so now that we've added the code inside of the user module here for the registration change set to support the name, all we have to do is we can just come in here, and the user params, we want it to include the name of the user. So where our registration form is here in our user registration live module, we'll just go ahead and we'll add a field in addition to email. We'll have a name field, and it will be of type text, and then we will just label it name, and we'll require it. That's fine. So now if we come back here to our registration form, it includes the name. And so now I can say this is Bob. This can be bob@test.com. And I'll just give Bob a unique password. I'll create his account. So now we can see that we are logged in here at bob@test.com. And if we come back to our application and we look at our database and we query the users table again, we can now see that the user bob@test.com has the name Bob. So now we are registering the users with the names. So that's a good first step for this video. So congratulations, you now have your users able to register with signing up with their name. And then what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to use this name to display their names next to each one of the users, basically as the author name, very similar to how Medium.com has their users' names appearing here. Not user names, but the person's name appearing here, the author's name. So I'll see you over in the next video. There's a couple interesting things to discuss actually with how we're going to basically tie our users, the person's or author's name to a story. All right, so I'll see you over in the next video where we'll continue building out this functionality for our Medium.com like clone.